Welcome back to Adobe Photoshop. And today we're going to take a look at color management. So if you ever had an image and you printed it out and it didn't look anything like what you expected it to look like, or how you saw it on your computer monitor, or what you toned on your computer looks completely different on the internet, well, those are color management issues and they're really easy to solve. So it's something that's a little bit misunderstood and not a lot of people understand it. So today I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show you exactly how you need to set things up. You need to follow this path. It's linear. So if you change something, your end result could differ. Today I'm going to explain what color management is, what you need to do, and how to set it up. So let's slide on over to the computer and take a look at color management. The first thing that we need to do when dealing with color management, and even before we start adjusting or toning an image, so this is a RAW file and it is in Adobe Camera Raw. The first thing that we need to do is actually calibrate our monitor. So if our monitor is not calibrated, we are just guessing as to what we see on our computer monitor is actually accurate. So if you've ever got a new computer and gone into it, there's actually a color profile area where you can set sRGB, Adobe, P3, anything that you want as far as a color profile. However, a lot of those profiles are just simulations of what it should look like. It doesn't mean that it's exact. The only way you can do this is calibrate to a standard. And to do that, you're going to need something like this. This is the Data Color Monitor Spider. I think this is the Elite version. X-Rite also makes one. It used to be called the Color Monkey. I don't know what it's called now anymore. But these are basically anywhere from $100 to $150. They go on sale all the time. So places like B&H, many times during the year, will have these half price or 50% off. So they're great deals. But what that does is it calibrate your monitor to a standard. What I'm going to do, because my monitor actually does need to be calibrated. Now, the light that I'm using here really isn't that great for calibrating your monitor. So yes, I'll probably do this again at night when the light is even. So I'm going to walk you through some basic steps of what you need to set when you calibrate your monitor. I have a whole video on me calibrating this monitor with this device, so you can watch that if you really want to get into it. But I'm just going to show you what the settings are. And what you'll see is a lot of these numbers or settings will keep reoccurring in the process. So this is the first window that I have. It's just asking what kind of monitor I have. We're going to go ahead and calibrate a display. So we're going to hit next. All right. It gives us some basic information. I understand all this. We're going to go ahead and hit next. It's asking me what type of backlight. This is a wide LED. I'm going to pick expert controls so I can show you everything. We're going to hit next. And this is the screen that I want to show you. So select the display, and this would be for if you had multiple monitors. All right. So this is an Apple iMac 5K. Our default target is a 2.2 gamma, 6500 Kelvin with a luminance value of 120. That's key. That luminance value of 120 is key. So right here we see we're at 6500 Kelvin. Our gamma is 2.2 instead of 1.8. And right down here is where that 120 is for the luminance value, okay? So these are the settings. I changed this. I had it just to check it, so I want to do the full calibration. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. It's going to give me some information. So I put my spider up against the glass so it's completely flat as to where that little symbol is. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now I'm going to hit next. And it's going to run through this first basic process. And then what it's going to do, it's going to tell me to turn my brightness all the way up. I don't have contrast controls or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and brightness all the way up. I'm going to hit continue. And this is where we're going to end up setting that luminance value. So up here, currently we're at 478.7. All right, way too bright. You'd be surprised how dim the monitor is when you set this. So we want to go to 120. So I'm going to take my brightness and I'm going to go down to about there. I'm going to hit update and we'll see where we're at. So we're at 212. So let's go down a little bit more. And 152, I'll do another one. We're going to hit OK. And we're at 122.0. That's pretty good. You can actually do a Mac in little teeny increments instead of big ones by holding Option Shift and then brightness. So I'll go down just a little bit and then we'll hit update and we'll see where that goes to. That's 114. That's too much. So I'm going to do the same thing and hit bright and we'll go back up to where we were. Update. And 122 seems to be good as far as where we're going to get it. Then I'm just simply going to hit continue. It's going to run through the calibration process. So at this point, it's running through the calibration process. What I'll do is I'll speed this up super fast because it does take a few minutes to do it. And then we'll get into the next screen. And that's actually a screen that I want to show you because where it might not make sense right this second, eventually by the end of this video, it's going to make sense. All right, so it is finished. We're going to go ahead and hit finish. I'm going to go ahead and remove this off of my screen and tip my screen back down. And you can see we get this new window. And so for this, I'm going to put February of 2025 so I know when I did this. Right here, ask me when I want to recalibrate. In this case, we're just going to hit save. And this is important. We're going to go to the next screen and we're going to go ahead and click. So in photography, we have basically three main standards that we work with as far as color profiles. And look, color profiles existed calibrating monitors before digital photography. So we've had them for a long time. It's nothing new. So the ones we use are sRGB, Adobe RGB, and ProPhoto RGB. If we come on over here, you'll notice, so if you look up here, you'll see it says 100% of the sRGB profile, meaning this calibrated monitor can view 100% of the sRGB color profile. If I come down here, it's saying we're getting 91% of the Adobe color profile. And it looks like we got P3, not ProPhoto. And we have 99% of P3, which is really the color profile that Apple uses alike. In this case, it doesn't have ProPhoto, but that's okay. ProPhoto, we would have much less percentage because it's a massive color profile that we'll take a look at. So we're going to go ahead and quit this and get out of it. So what I've done is I've brought up my settings and you'll notice right here we have displays set up. And if you look at color profile, it says February of 2025. You can see down here, these are a bunch of different profiles from when I calibrated my monitor, but this is February. So for this to work, you want to leave your color profile for your display as the calibrated color profile that we just created right here. You want to make sure that night shift or anything that would change the color on your computer automatically is not on. So we're going to go ahead and close that out. So that's step number one, to calibrate your monitor, and then you need to make sure that it's set so that what you're viewing is that color profile. Now that color profile we find out is very similar to the Adobe color profile. So we're back here inside of Photoshop. So when you're taking photos with your camera, if you're shooting JPEG, you're going to have the options to apply either sRGB or the Adobe RGB color profile. I would always tell people to use the Adobe color profile if you're shooting a JPEG. And the reason for that is the Adobe color gamut is larger than the sRGB color gamut. So you're going to get more information as far as color shooting in Adobe than you are in the sRGB color profile. Now, if you are taking photographs as a RAW file, you don't have to worry because a RAW image just captures the photo. It doesn't apply the color profile until we go over here into either inside of Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom or some other program that converts RAW to something that's workable inside of something like JPEG, which is a RAW conversion program. If you come down here, you'll notice in Adobe Camera Raw that I have my color profile set up as Adobe RGB, which used to be called 1998, and I'm working in 16 bits. I can click that box and it brings up the box here. So you can see we've got all these different options. So color match is something that we used to use a long time ago, which is display. There's the ProPhoto, there is sRGB. So those are our different options. In this case, I work in Adobe RGB, and I'll explain why I work in that color profile. We also have something called 8 bits and 16 bits, and you'll notice that when working in a RAW file, because a JPEG is only 8 bits, and you can't set this, and you don't really work in RAW, so it doesn't make a difference. But when you're working in RAW, you want to make sure that you're working or starting off working in 16 bits. The reason we want to work in 16 bits is because we have so much more information. So just a quick explanation, we'll get into it more later, is 8 bits has 256 shades of gray, 16 bits has 64,500 about. It's not the exact number, but close to that. So we're talking about a little bit of information versus a lot of information. That lot of information lets us make an adjustment and it doesn't affect the image as much, and it has much smoother tonal gradations and a whole lot more color options as we adjust our photos for photography. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. So I normally come in here and make some adjustments. In this case, I don't really care. But now when I hit open, it's going to finally apply that color profile to the image. So we're going to hit open and it's going to go into Adobe Photoshop. Now, one thing I'd like to tell you, before you ever do this, you should always just open up Photoshop and set your color settings. So we're doing this sort of out of order, but mine are already set, so I don't have to worry about it. So to set your color settings, you're simply going to go up here to Edit and go down to Color Settings. And what you can do here is you can make a screenshot, but the color profile that I use is Adobe, but I could pick anything that I wanted. So if I wanted ProPhoto or sRGB, I could easily do that. So this is what we call my working space, all right? What do I want to work in? And I want to work in Adobe. The other one that I changed to make sure that you are in Gray Gamma 2.2. So 2.2 is going to have more information than 1.8. So I changed the gray to Gray Gamma 2.2. Next, we have color management policies. And I've changed all these to convert to working. All right. So convert to working this profile, this profile, this profile. All right. They're all convert to working. I also have ask when opening. So when I open an image, it's going to be, hey, your color profile is sRGB. Do you want to convert it to Adobe RGB? And I would hit yes. The reason I do that is for a couple of things. One, I do tutorials and I want people to see what's happening. The other is sometimes I actually don't want to change the color profile, which we're not going to get into today, but there is a reason. So I have these two box tick mark. That's all we need to change, and we hit OK. One word of the wise, occasionally when you update the program, especially on big updates, it resets these. It usually doesn't. So when there's an update, just go into your color settings and make sure they're set as you set them now. They didn't go back to the default, which would be sRGB. We're going to go up here to Edit, and I'm going to do Convert to Profile. Now I'm going to convert this to sRGB. And I want you to see, so in this image, I just converted it from Adobe to sRGB. You really probably can't see any change, all right? It's just remapping the color. So let's go over here to this image here. So what we see here inside of Adobe Photoshop is a color gamut chart. And what this has is the sRGB, Adobe RGB, and ProPhoto RGB. And it shows the color spectrum. So what we see right here in color is what the visible eye can see, all right? So we have 3 different triangles, and those 3 different triangles show you what that color profile can see in the color spectrum. So you can see sRGB is this little white triangle that goes just like this. So all the colors that we see inside of this white triangle are what the sRGB color profile can see, or in this case, show. We also have D65, and I just guessed as to where that was. That stands for the Kelvin temperature of 6,500 Kelvin, which is a complete neutral white. So that's a standard that we use. And if you remember, when we calibrated, we set that to 6,500K. And that's what D65 stands for. The Adobe color profile is this gray triangle. And you can see the gray triangle is larger, and you can see more visible colors with this color profile. Now, you're going to be like, well, you said you work in Adobe RGB. However, look at ProPhoto. It shows all this other stuff. Well, there's a couple reasons I don't use this massive color profile. First of all, the color profile is so large, it actually goes out the visible spectrum of what a human could actually see. It also goes out of what my monitor can display. So if you remember, my monitor, which is a 5K monitor, can only display 91% of the Adobe color profile. So I'm most likely not going to be able to see a lot of the color spectrum that ProPhoto is able to show. Now, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. Could you use it? Absolutely. Using ProPhoto, yes, it has the largest color gamut, and it's going to really allow me to adjust the full image without degrading anything. However, it's just so large that it's really not a benefit for me. My monitor can't display it, no printers can print it, and my eye can't see it. So at this point, until things get better, I'm not going to be using ProPhoto. If you want to use it, you can. This is why I use the Adobe color profile at this point. What I want to do is, let's go over here to this image. So if you remember, I said that we work in 16 bits, and right up here, you can see there's a little 16. That means we are in 16 bits, all right? So inside of 16 bits, so just a few minutes ago, I explained the difference between 8 bits and 16 bits. So an 8-bit image can represent 256 shades of gray per channel, meaning red, green, and blue, resulting in a total of 16.7 million possible colors. However, a 16-bit image can display 65,536 shades of gray per channel, allowing for a much greater range in colors and smoother gradients. Massive amount of data between 8-bit and 16 bits. So anything that we print or put on the web eventually is going to get sized down to 8 bits. So you're like, so why do we adjust an image in 16 bits? Because if you make an adjustment to bring out your shadows in an 8-bit image, there's not as much data, and it's going to start falling apart, and it's not going to have as smooth of gradations as you would in 16-bit. Basically, you want to adjust it in 16-bit, and then just before you output to either print or the web, you're going to convert it to 8-bit, all right? It's gonna give you a better image. And on the web, you're also going to have to change your color profile. Remember, we're in Adobe RGB, but the web standard is sRGB. So we're going to also need to convert that color profile. And this is where the colors looking inaccurate from when you tone an image on your computer to when you display it on a computer or a web page might look different, is because you didn't convert it, or remember, you're dumbing down the image when you do that. So if we take a look at this image, and what I'm actually going to do is just double click this here, and I'm going to bring this right up next to her where you can see. And you can see this is the color picker in 16-bit image, all right? But look what happens down here. It says only web colors. So remember, when we go to sRGB, we've got 256 per color channel. And what you're going to see is this beautiful gradient that we have here instantly becomes all chopped up. So what this means is if we have a gray and it doesn't fit this specific gray, it's going to make that gray this color when you convert to an 8-bit sRGB image, all right? What it's doing is it can't display that color, so it clips it to the nearest color. So if you had this red, but your red was just a little bit different than the red here, it's going to make it this red. So you will see small shifts in color and brightness values when you convert down to sRGB or 8-bit. I call this the dumbing down process. So you start with this beautiful image. It looks amazing on your computer, but look, my monitor can display a whole lot more than even a really fine print can ever display. So it's dumbing that process down. It's making it grayer and darker, and the values are all getting closer together, all right? The color is not going to be as vibrant as what I see on my monitor as it is going to be on the web or in print. So how does this relate to color management? So we've set our color profiles, we've calibrated. So what I see is what I get, so I know my is accurate. So once I'm done toning or adjusting my image, I need to decide, well, what am I going to use this for? If it's for print, I'm going to size this for print. and I'm going to leave the present color profile as is. So if I hit Command Shift S, which is save as, you'll notice down here, it's embedding the color profile of Adobe. And that is the color profile that I'm going to set on my printer to print. However, not all printers use this color profile. So you'll need to ask and find out which color profile they use. Sometimes they use sRGB, sometimes they use Adobe, and sometimes they might even have a custom color profile that you'll have to load in. So we're going to hit cancel. Now, if I'm sizing this for the web, all right, I would size my image down to whatever size I want it to be. And then I would come in here and go edit, convert to profile. And this is where I want to make sure that I have that sRGB setting. All right. Because we know that sRGB is the color profile for the web. So I would hit OK and it does that. Now, I don't do any of this. I have actions set up and you can easily go and download my actions. They have everything that I just showed you built in. So right here is an action to size for 1500 pixels, sharpen, and you'll notice it's got the sRGB color profile. And just like that, my image has been sized, the color profile has been changed, and this one is ready to go for the web. So this is what we mean by color management. That output could be for print or from the web. And we are adjusting and managing that color the whole way through the process so that what we see is what we get on output. However, you have to remember, even though I've converted all this stuff, this image for the web isn't going to look as good on my monitor as it is on a web page. You're going to see it darken and gray down a little bit. Sometimes I actually brighten up an image for the web just a teeny tiny bit to help it so it doesn't get too gray. So the last thing I'd like to show you is this web page. So if you remember in one of my previous videos, I was showing you how I made this layout. And this layout is for T-Lab Designs, which is a t-shirt design company that I just created. And you will notice that we have a photography collection. However, there's one more shirt that I've added to it. And I'm always adding. So if you're interested in any photography t-shirts or you have some great ideas of designs that you would like to see on a t-shirt, I'd be glad to hear any of that. But remember, hey, we don't just have photography t-shirts. I've got a whole bunch of different designs. And this month, I've got a whole bunch of new drops that are coming out. So just a little advertising for this new site that I have created. I hope you found this video helpful. Understand a little bit more about color management. On my website at shutterbugacademy.net, I do have some very specific articles on each one of these different topics. It gives you a little bit more as far as the numbers and data if you're interested in that aspect of it. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day.